Oh, you want to play psycho killer? Can I be the helpless victim?
Cross your eyes and scream, man. Scream for your life.
Welcome, Scream Things. I'm your host, Jenica Olin. This is my 31st episode. My theme for this month is June of the Dead. Zombie films often serve as grim mirrors, exposing the fragility of order and the thin veneer of morality. A father haunted by his choices, children searching for safety in a landscape where trust is a luxury. Here, the true horror lies not only in the rage-filled monsters outside, but in the quiet, devastating moments where trust and betrayal become intertwined. Zombie narratives like this one turn families into vulnerabilities, forcing us to question the strength and the cost of the bonds we're meant to protect. In a world where survival comes first, love and loyalty can become dangerous, even deadly. If you're new here, each episode will have an intro, brief synopsis of the movie, and analysis of the film, and then I get into the true horrors of it all. I'm a huge true crime fan, and I like to make connections between the true horrors that inspire our darkest imaginations. The truth is, the stuff on screen is way tamer than the true horrors that take place every day. Spoiler alert, I've made it my job to spoil the shit out of this movie. Today, I'll be covering 28 Weeks Later, directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, written by Rowan Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, and Enrique Lopez, starring Jeremy Renner, Rose Byron, and Robert Carlyle. Estimated budget was $15 million. The estimated gross was $65 million. The tagline for this film: "It all begins again." Some quick trivia about this movie. The boy who arrives at the cottage at the beginning of the film claims to be from Stanford. Stanford is the name of the fake village used by the British police to train recruits and practice emergency preparedness drills. The street plan, which is based on Dundee, Scotland. Stanford is also the fictitious location for the action comedy Hot Fuzz. All of the night scenes involving Andy, Tammy, Scarlett, Doyle, and Sam's journey across London to escape bombs were shot day after day using a new technique created specifically for the film by director of photography Enrique Chediek. Danny Boyle directed some of the second unit filming and also directed one first unit sequence, the scene in the barn near the start of the film where Sally and Jeff are killed. Series trademark is the whole eye gouging kills. When Don attacks his wife, he attacks her and presses her eyes with his thumbs. So we saw that in the first movie, 28 Days Later, when Jeff kills the soldier with his bare hands, sticking his thumbs in the guy's eyes. During the containment breach, when the snipers are trying to kill the infected, one of them mentions FUBAR over the radio. The acronym stands for Fucked Up Beyond All Recognition, and was coined by the U.S. military during World War II. Let's set the scene with a synopsis of the movie.
Are you going to tell us what happened to Mum?
The last infected human died 6 months ago.
We weren't here 6 months ago.
Have you come into direct contact with the infected?
During the outbreak of the rage virus in England, Don and his wife Alice hide in a country house with 4 other people. Don and Alice are happy that their 2 children are on a school trip to Spain and thus away from the disaster. They allow a young boy to enter the house, but the infected have followed him and break in. The others are killed. Don abandons Alice to save himself.
Don! Help us!
28 weeks later, the infected have all starved to death. An American-led NATO force has secured parts of London and is now allowing the return of English citizens who have been abroad during the outbreak. Among them are Don and Alice's children, Tammy and Andy. Everyone lives in the Green Zone, a secure area on the Isle of Dogs, a peninsula on the east end of London. Snipers patrol the rooftops in case of another outbreak. Leaving the Green Zone is forbidden because troops are still cleaning up the corpses that have been rotting for 6 months. Don manages one of the apartment buildings in the zone. He tells Tammy and Andy that he tried to save their mother, but there was no hope. Tammy and Andy decide to sneak out into London and visit their old home to retrieve personal items. There, Andy discovers Alice in the attic, delirious but alive. The NATO soldiers take Alice back to the Green Zone. An Army medical officer, Scarlett, discovers an old bite wound on her and does a blood test. Alice has the rage virus in her blood, but is immune to the effects. However, she is a carrier who can infect others with her saliva or blood. The commanding officer, Stone, orders Alex executed even though she could hold the secret to curing the virus. Meanwhile, Dawn sneaks into where Alice is being kept. Tammy and Andy had bitterly accused him of abandoning her, and he wants to explain himself. She tells him she loves him. They kiss tenderly, and Dawn is infected with the virus. Becoming an enraged madman, he crushes Alice's skull and escapes into the Green Zone, killing several soldiers and infecting others. Realizing that Andy and Alice shared a genetic quirk that might make him immune to the virus's effects, Scarlett rescues Tammy and Andy. The Army had moved quickly to contain the infection, herding the residents in the Green Zone into safe rooms. Andy is separated from Tammy and Scarlett and placed in a different room with other residents. However, Don has been hiding in his room and attacks the crowd, spreading the virus. Andy escapes through an air vent. The panicked residents, along with the infected, are allowed on the streets of the Green Zone. The snipers are told to kill everyone.
No shot.
Abandoned selective targeting. All targets are now free.
Confirm order?
Rooftop units, target everyone at ground level. No exceptions. Repeat, no exceptions.
Scarlett and Tammy make it into a storehouse along with Andy and a few others, including one of the snipers, Doyle, who abandoned his post when he could not bring himself to kill Andy. He tells them that the Army will kill them too, unless they can escape the city. He leads the survivors through the streets. Unbeknownst to them, Dawn is following. Doyle makes contact with the Friends helicopter pilot, Flynn, who tells them to get out of the Green Zone as soon as possible, as the area is to be firebombed. They make it into a pedestrian tunnel under the river and barely escape the firestorm. Meanwhile, about 50 other infected survive the firestorm and break through the perimeter of the Green Zone into London. Doyle and his group make it into a park and rest. Scarlett tells him that Tammy and Andy could provide a cure for the rage virus, and thus more important than them. Flynn radios Doyle to wait for the helicopter in Regent's Park. When he arrives, Flynn refuses to take anyone other than Doyle.
Doyle! Come in! Doyle! You need to get to safe ground! Get to the stadium! Ditch those people! I'm not taking them!
Doyle and Scarlett take Tammy and Andy into the city. They are to meet Flynn at Wembley Stadium, where he will fly them to safety on the other side of the English Channel. The four of them dodge the infected. Soldiers are killing the infected with poison gas and flamethrowers. Scarlett and Doyle know the Army will assume they are infected and kill them all too. Scarlett, Tammy, and Andy get into the car. Scarlett pops the clutch, while Doyle pushes the car, jump-starts it.
Come on, start.
Put your foot in the clutch. All right. You pop the clutch when I tell you, okay? You get them to the stadium. Okay?
As they drive away, the soldiers incinerate Doyle. Avoiding helicopters, Scarlett drives the car into a subway station. They decide to follow the train tracks to Wembley because it is pitch dark. Scarlett uses the night sight on Doyle's rifle to guide them, but they are separated when Tammy and Andy trip over corpses on the escalator. Tammy and Scarlett try to find Andy, but suddenly Don appears and beats Scarlett to death with Doyle's rifle. He then pursues Andy, tackles him, and bites him. Tammy shoots Don and saves Andy, who is immune like his mother, but is covered in infected blood. The children continue to Wembley Stadium and meet Flynn. He can't bring himself to shoot the two children, so he flies them across the English Channel and out of Britain. No one alive knows that Andy is immune, but can still infect others. The rage virus has now been transported off the British island, out of the natural containment which for 28 weeks has kept the virus from spreading. Cut to 28 days later, Flynn's now wrecked helicopter is seen, with the radio receiving a message of distress from a man with a French accent. Then a crowd of infected run through the subway tunnel. They emerge into the light, and they run toward the Eiffel Tower.
We need your help. Répondez.
Now it's time to talk horror, and today I am solo in this episode. I screwed up some scheduling stuff from being on vacation, and just being one person managing everything can be chaotic at moments. So let's talk about 28 Weeks Later. 28 Weeks Later is a study in what happens when society structures collapse. Like all zombie movies, we have our themes of it, and these are repeating themes from last week because I covered 28 Days Later, which we're dealing with zombies, we're dealing with a political system, a societal collapse, we're dealing with a rage virus that is building upon our basic human emotions and what is social construct in our survival and what is primal instinct. There's the difference between survival and civilization. They're very different concepts at their core. To be civilized is not to survive. But we can argue from some of these themes that we need each other for humanity to thrive. And we saw that a lot in the last movie, and the movie opens up with betrayal. Don abandons his wife to save himself. It's a brutal scene because he doesn't even try to save her, not even for like a minute. He looked at her and he said, "Peace the fuck out." He closed the door behind himself and just went for it. And she's at the window saying, "Help me," and she wants help, and he's just like, "I'm running." So the person that he was supposed to love and protect, and through sickness and health and through death do us part, I guess he chose death. He was like, "All right, you're dead. We're done." It's just a reminder of social contracts that we have, like a marriage license doesn't actually mean anything in the great scope of things. If the world was to fall apart tomorrow, no one gives a shit about that piece of paper that says you're married to someone. We have our dad, Don, and he chose survival over love and these bonds that hold us together as a community. Once those are broken, chaos follows. Like, if I'm not going to stay here and protect my wife or the children or any of these people that I care about, then who the fuck am I going to protect? Who am I going to care about? The answer is no one and nothing except for yourself. So you become this lone shark, but we're not those animals. We are pack animals. And so that's not how we survive. You know, that eventually becomes a problem for you on a large enough scale. So we've got the military. Again, we've got the military. In the first one, the military had no hope. And they were like, "Oh, we need these women because we need hope. And women are the future, and women are hope." Because these men just want to have fun at the expense of women. So we had that going on in the military, abuse of power. And then in this one, we have abuse of power again. And the abuse of power here is that Once the infection breaks out again, the military quickly abandons protocols of protection and shifts into one of containment through annihilation. Civilians are no longer seen as people, they're potential threats. The moment chaos erupts, everyone in the crowd is a threat, and they're already infected within the military's minds. The way that they're trained, they are to eliminate a threat, and whether or not you're proven to be a threat, just being in the vicinity of a threat is enough for you to be eliminated. This reflects a terrifying real-world pattern. When systems of power are overwhelmed, fear takes the wheel, and the default response becomes reactive instead of proactive. Individual identity, innocence, and context are blurred, all in the name for gaining control. So the military's actions echo historical and modern examples of governments treating marginalized or panicked populations as dangerous, whether during wartime, pandemics, protests, or refugee moments. These all have parallels between each other. The crowd becomes a body of expendable lives, people reduced to risks instead of humans. So we've got fear of the unseen enemy. When the rage virus moves invisibly at first, you can't see who's infected. At first, it's very small. Anyone can be infected at that point. That fear breeds indiscriminate violence, which is exactly how real-life institutions have historically justified violence during outbreaks, uprisings, or social unrest. It's what happens. So a key example of this is the moment when Code Red is activated. Snipers fire into crowds of civilians, not because they see the infected, but because they can't tell who's safe. It's not about survival at this point. It's about control. The state fears losing its grip more than it fears individual death. A takeaway I have from this is that 28 weeks later warns us that in a crisis, systems meant to protect us may default to treating us as the threat. When the line between us and them blurs, power often chooses to eliminate rather than understand. The U.S. military presence in District 1 echoes real-world post-war occupations. Their control over who is allowed in and where they can go and how they're monitored reflects biopolitics. Who is deemed a threat and who gets to decide? Civilians are herded, tagged, and killed to maintain order, much like how real populations have historically been treated during crisis. The infected represent the feared other, contagious, irrational, and violent. This aligns with the way cultures have historically stigmatized outsiders or the sick. When the virus returns, the military doesn't try to contain it, they attempt to erase it, showing how quickly fear turns into dehumanization. Andy and Tammy symbolize second-generation trauma. They are children trying to survive in a world built by those who destroyed it. Andy is actually told, he's 12 years old, and he's actually told that he is now the youngest person in the UK. The final scene, showing the infected reaching Paris, serves as a chilling reminder of globalization. In today's interconnected world, borders are illusions. Once a cultural or biological threat is unleashed, it moves fast, regardless of nation or authority. 28 weeks later doesn't just scare us, it reflects our deepest fears about control, trust, and the collapse of order. A really great example of this, any sickness that we have. So we had COVID, right? 2020, we had COVID, and we really tried to contain it by limiting travel. There were restrictions all over the place to make sure that things weren't spread, but they still got spread because at this point in our world, with how things are so interconnected, it's impossible to contain. You can definitely minimize the impact, but you can never fully control these things. So the illusion of control is always going to make us spiral out of control, right? One thing that got me about this movie is how quickly they brought back the civilians. I mean, it was 28 weeks later. Half of London was still ruined. They were brought back into a quarantined half-ruined London long before the city was truly safe. The military and government prioritized optics, proving that life is back to normal instead of ensuring the threat is actually gone. The fact that not all the corpses were removed and key areas were still unstable shows a deep negligence. The zombies in this instant represent the consequences of denial, short-term thinking, and political pressure, because I'm sure there was pressure to get these kids out of whatever country they were in, because they were refugees technically. Their country had been under biochemical warfare, or, whatever you want to call it, but it was ruined. And 6 months is a long time for refugees to be in another country. The kids were in a different country when this happened, and the parents were happy that they weren't there. There's always politics involved. So I'm sure in the background, what they're not showing you is the political climate and the negotiations between these countries. I'm sure they just wanted them to go back. If it was safe enough, then that was good enough for them to send these people back to a place that was in complete collapse. The government declared it to be safe enough before they could really say so. The outbreak isn't just a horror event, it's a systematic failure, one that reflects real-world parallels in everything from post-war resettlement to pandemic reopenings. By letting people back in too soon, the system creates its own apocalypse. This also adds emotional depth to the tragedy. It's not just a virus returning, it's people being sacrificed to the altar of progress. So it is interesting that we have the two children, and they are the main characters that we're going to follow throughout all of these events, all of the tragedy that happens. Andy is the one who gets infected, and like his mother, he's not immune, but he is asymptomatic. He is a carrier, and he could possibly provide a cure for the rage virus. So what does this mean as a child as the cure? It represents the complex hope of the future. He's innocent, vulnerable, and yet biologically powerful. This taps into a long-standing cultural archetype, the child as a symbol of rebirth, purity, and continuity of society. In the ruins of civilization, children often become symbols of what we might salvage. But Andy isn't just a symbol of hope. He's also a potential weapon. He carries within him both immunity and a viral legacy of destruction. This reflects real-world tensions and how society view the next generation. As potential saviors, think climate change, activism, generational change, or as a risk. They are unpredictable. They want change. They want something different than what the generation had before. Change is scary. In the final moments of the movie, we see that the virus has spread to Paris, carrying heavy implications. The movement of a cured or immune individual unknowingly bringing infection mirrors the historical spread of disease through colonization and forced migration. It speaks to how imperialist powers often displace people without understanding or respecting biological or cultural consequences. Bringing Andy to another country suggests that no cure can be isolated in a world this interconnected. What seems like a solution in one place can become a catastrophe somewhere else. This reflects modern anxieties about pandemics, migration, and how borders fail in the face of biological threats. Andy is a living contradiction, hope tainted by destruction. In societal terms, this reflects how progress often carries the unintended consequences of the past. We try to save ourselves with the very thing that also has the potential to destroy us. So that is my deep dive into the themes of this. I think the only thing I didn't really mention is the fact that the mother was still in the house surviving by herself, and she was not symptomatic. So she was brought back for testing. They tested her blood. They saw that she did have the virus, but she was a carrier. It was the first time they had seen this. And we had our two opposing sides with this. One side was like, we need to use this to help us understand the rage virus, because just believing that it could go away 100%, I mean, from a scientist's point of view, it's already here. That's the scientist's perspective. They need to study it more. But the military is like, nah, that's a threat. We need to eliminate it now. And then we've got the husband. He's got a guilty conscience. His kids call him out. It's a pretty brutal scene for the dad. And he feels like he needs to clear his conscience by going over and apologizing to her. But there's no amount of apologizing that's going to fix that situation. He abandoned his wife. That was an interesting moment too, where I think she had empathy and she was forgiving. She says, I love you to him, but almost like she knows she's infected. She knows how this is spread and she's going to kiss him. She wanted to kill him. She had been in that house for 6 months by herself. She knew how it was spread. Yeah, I'm going to say that that was biochemical warfare against him. He abandoned her. He was looking to her for hope, for salvation, because of the choices he made, and she gave him what he deserved, I think.
We've lost control. Kill everyone.
In my shadow, that's it.
Now it's time for the true horrors. There are some relevant events happening in our world today. Right here in the United States of America, we have militarized streets and unnecessary force being used against the American people, which is a parallel to the military force in this movie. So what's happening exactly? And why is this a problem that we have over 700 active duty Marines and then about 4,000 National Guards have been mobilized during the ICE-related protests, most of which are peaceful? Like in 28 Days Later, this rapid deployment prioritizes optics and control over public safety and civil liberties. Right now, experts are saying that Trump's deployment of the military violates the Posse Comitatus Act. I hope I said that right. I did listen to someone pronouncing it, but I probably butchered it still. So that act was passed in 1878, and it limits the powers of the federal government and the use of federal military personnel to enforce domestic policy within the United States. This is to limit the amount of government overreach into communities. Specifically, it prohibits federal troops from participating in civil law enforcement unless explicitly authorized by the law. And the word the law is referring to the county. So comitatus actually means county. The mayor needs to make a call for help for this not to be violated, and the mayor has not done any such thing. So right now, by using the military, this act is being violated. This act serves to maintain a clear distinction between military and civilian roles and governance. We don't need military action against our own people. We are told that the Marines and the National Guards have been deployed all in the name of public safety, right? Yeah, that's what they're saying. But we know better. We know that they were deployed as a fear tactic to control the domestic protests, prioritizing control over civil liberties and individual rights. The military isn't going to look at these people as individuals. They will be looked at as a mass group. And if one person gets rowdy, suddenly they're all a threat. This leads to escalation in ways that would not have happened without these forces being placed there. And this is something that's being warned against. And this is something that I'm not making up. And this is something that has been proven throughout history with protests and escalations by the ones that are there to quote unquote protect us. If you don't agree with me, go educate yourself. This military overreach by Trump is an effort to control the people, control the narrative, and have an authoritarian hold. It's not, as he claims, civilian welfare. Because if it was civilian welfare, then we would be trying to do things peacefully and decreasing presence of a threat. Because the civilians are not the large threat. The military being placed amongst our civilians, that is a threat. I don't feel safe when I have military presence on my street. Do you? Do you feel safe when there are huge ass rifles around the soldiers' necks, walking around with their helmets fully padded, wearing their bulletproof gear, and they're not smiling at you? The majority of people that are protesting are doing so peacefully. And now those people are afraid that they are going to be perceived as a threat because they are the other. They are the other side of this fight. But they don't have the gun. They don't have the bulletproof vest. So who is the threat? It's pretty fucking simple. In a post on social platform X, Newsom has called these deployments reckless and disrespectful to our troops. This isn't about public safety, Newsom said. It's about stroking a dangerous president's ego. They are pushing back, so California Attorney General Rob Bonta filed a lawsuit over the use of National Guard troops following the first deployment, telling reporters that Trump had trampled the state's sovereignty. He says, "We don't take lightly to the president abusing his authority and unlawfully mobilizing California National Guard troops." He sought a court order declaring Trump's use of the Guard unlawful and asking for a restraining order to halt the deployment. Trump said the city would have been completely obliterated if he had not deployed the Guard. I have a question for Mr. Trump. Where was this presence when our Capitol was under attack? Yeah, we're not forgetting that one. I remember back on January 6th of 2021 when Trump wasn't so quick to stop protesters that literally stormed the U.S. Capitol building. They were a heavily armed mob of supporters of President at the time, Donald Trump. And he has pardoned many of these people who have been arrested. And he has come out saying that they were good people. If you are on the side of the Orange Cheeto Man and you think that what he's doing is actually to keep people safe, you need look no further than the protests that he has supported and how he has treated those people. Let's end on a high note. Weekly Horror Update. 28 Years Later is going to be in theaters next Friday on the 20th. I'm super excited. I am definitely seeing that the night it comes out. There's no way I'm not going to be in that theater. Jaws is going to be airing on ABC for its 50th anniversary with a new Steven Spielberg introduction. While the movie Life of Chuck is not horror, it is getting a lot of attention in the horror community because it was directed by Mike Flanagan and it is based on a Stephen King short story. I've heard lots of really good things. It's supposed to be a very emotional movie. I definitely plan on seeing it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. There's a new folk horror movie coming out next month. It's called The Banished, and it's an Australian folk horror movie. Apparently, this one is going to make your skin crawl, and just from the picture, it looks real messed up. Tomorrow is Friday the 13th. Pluto TV is celebrating Friday the 13th with the franchise playing an all-day marathon. So if you want to catch up on some Friday the 13th, or maybe you haven't watched those movies in a little while, this is your time to binge all of them. And there are 12 of them. So that's a full day of watching Friday the 13th. this Sunday, the 15th, is Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all of you Scream Things out there that are dads. I'm going to have a spot at Market of the Beast this Sunday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. In the market, I will have a photo spot for you to take a picture with a cosplay of Jason Voorhees, but a very good cosplay of Jason Voorhees. I think that's what every dad wants, a picture with Jason Voorhees, maybe scaring the shit out of his kids. That would be a great Father's Day gift to get your dad. I apologize in advance to my husband for the fact that I am going to be working at his venue on Father's Day instead of celebrating him like we usually do. And we always do things for each other, like little acts of kindness towards one another. So it's not a big deal. Next Tuesday on the 17th, I have my horror trivia night. And that is going to be on all the Friday the 13th movies. So you should definitely watch Pluto TV. Just get that marathon in so that on the 17th, you're ready to do my trivia night. If you would like to collaborate with me, or if you want to reach out to tell me how good of a job I'm doing, you can contact me at screamqueenpodcaster@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at screamqueenpodcaster, Blue Sky at screamqueenpodcast, and TikTok at screamqueenpodcast. There's a Linktree and YouTube and Facebook page as well. This is a weekly podcast with new episodes out every Thursday. All the research, audio, and writing is done by yours truly. This is a one-woman show, and I'm doing my very best. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. It really means a lot. I say it every episode, and then I check, and I have no new reviews. So please, I know that I'm getting new listeners because I look on the platform and I can see that my downloads are going up. So if you are listening, it really, really helps me out. It helps me get into the algorithm, be seen more, and I'm working hard here. So those things really help me out. So please remember, if it's been a short period of time, like after some kind of natural disaster or something, and they're like, oh, you're going to be the first wave of people to come back to this territory, don't go. You wait. You say, you know what? I'm going to hold off. I'm going to stay here. You guys go. Tell me how it is. That's my advice. Don't be the first wave of anything ever. Thank you for listening. Bye.